Hello, everybody. Welcome to Trading the Close. My name is Drew Dosek, and today in the markets, we saw a gradual float up. And this float up occurred for several different reasons. Tomorrow morning, we've got the PCE data that's going to be released at 8:30 in the morning. That's inflation data, and that will move the market. So we'll likely have some volatility early in the morning before the markets open tomorrow. And then in addition, we do have a holiday next week with July 4th. So we're starting to get into the slower times of the year, the summer doldrums, as we like to call them. And so when you have the slower times, you typically have less volatility, which all means less volume too. So gradual floats up are somewhat typical when these times occur. All right, so let's get into the data today. Here's a market summary board. Let's take a look at it. Right now, we see the Dow Jones up 1.08%, NASDAQ up 0.93%, S&P 500 up 0.85%, U.S. oil up 0.76%, gold basically flat, slightly down 0.06%, and Bitcoin's up 0.23%. All right, so let's jump into the S&P 500 heat map, and we see here a couple players really pushing up into some key resistance levels, those being Netflix and Meta, both of which we're going to look at later in this show today. Up 2.47% for Netflix, Meta up 2.42%, AVGO up 2.08%, Amazon up 2.47%, Walmart faltering just a little bit, down 1.02%. But across the board, we see a lot of green here on the screen, a little bit of reds here and there, but mostly was a positive day here in the markets. All right, so into the S&P 500, you see here we're getting so very close to reaching our double top highs. Matter of fact, you see here 61.47 is that number. Today's high is 61.46. We're within a buck from tagging the all-time highs. Truly remarkable move on the SPX right here. The last 3 days of pushing have really set the tone for this accomplishment to be made. So it looks like we're going to close near the highs. That would insinuate we still should have some more upside to go potentially tomorrow. We'll see if that PCE really changes that plan for the S&P 500, or if we do gap up above this all-time highs and make a new all-time high close. If we do that, probabilities then start to shift for a move up higher on the chart. So where you see resistance right here at 63.45. Now the Qs have already eclipsed the all-time highs and have continued pushing higher today. Again, impressive move here on the markets. We notice this 1, 2, 3, 4 candles up. This is an extended move, so we could have a pullback at any moment. However, the major resistance will lie right here on this inclining trend line, currently right at 558.64. Into the SMH. SMH also another fantastic push higher, but notice we're starting to run out of space with more room to run before we start getting into resistance. Also, look back over here on the left-hand side of the screen. You notice all-time highs on the SMH are not that far away, folks. So all-time highs starting to trigger on all of these indices. Usually at double tops or all-time highs, we do have some sort of pullbacks, especially if price is accelerating straight into that level. So I would anticipate we do start having some sort of consolidation or pause in move up, potential pullbacks once all of these all-time highs are tagged and pierced a little bit, because you see even here in this wedge pattern right here, we have a little room to run above the all-time highs before we really slam into resistance right here on the bottom end of this parallel channel. Next up, the IWM. IWM also had a nice push higher. Now this index has a lot of room to run. Notice the all-time highs over here at 244.95. We are much lower on the charts, a little more than 10%, almost 15% down from the all-time highs. So the small cap stocks, if we do, and that's something to think about too, folks, if we do continue pushing up on the S&P 500 and the Qs, a lot of investors are going to be looking around for other stocks that haven't yet caught a bid. They're going to start piling into small cap stocks. So be mindful of this, and we'll be tracking this every single day at the close to see if we do confirm above all-time highs, if we the likelihood starts telling us we're going to push a little bit higher. That would then help you isolate some other small cap stocks that should be pushing up and following the momentum moving higher in the stock market. Next up, we've got Bitcoin. Bitcoin here, as you've seen, this parallel channel has really illustrated, and here, let me switch over. This parallel channel has really illustrated the price movements of Bitcoin for the past several weeks. And notice over the last couple of days, where are we catching resistance? Right here at the 50% area of this parallel channel. So right now, that is the area to beat. But if we do beat it, the very next level of resistance is not that far away on this declining trend line here at $109,374. That's as of tomorrow. That price will decline the longer that it takes price to hit this trend line. So we could very well be chopping sideways for a few days, and then this resistance would likely start pushing price back down on the chart should we bubble up into it. So be mindful of that with Bitcoin in the near term. Next up, gold. Gold here just basically had a sideways day. We'll see if this continues. If it does, a bear flag pattern will be developing on that chart, which would imply that we would continue moving a little bit lower, with the first area support being the top end of this parallel channel, right under tomorrow's price at 32.45. Into silver. Silver here, this is a remarkable hard commodity that I've been banging the drum about ever since we broke out of this inverse head and shoulders pattern, that this is a play that you want to be involved in because the power and momentum behind silver is displayed here on the charts. We didn't even get a chance to retrace to this breakout. We've stayed above it. All these wicks with investors buying any little dip in silver is showing that price is likely going to continue moving higher. Next stop on the upside, $38.97. But keep an eye out on the support area, 34.86. Any pullbacks with this current pattern would be buying opportunities in that region. Next up, U.S. oil. U.S. oil, after its dramatic fall that we see here on the chart, we're starting to put in bear flag consolidation. Only 2 days of that consolidation, so we need to have this string out several more days for it to mature and potentially move down lower. You see here support 63.86. We kissed it. We didn't actually tag it, but this area, if we consolidate above it, it will weaken this support area. So that means the next area below is going to be this declining trend line right around 62.58, followed by the neckline of this breakout right at 61.56. Into nat gas. Nat gas also declined today, but it did get a great bounce very close to the support area. Support area was $3.38. We got a low of $3.40. So it missed this support area just by 2 cents and has since bounced up. That just shows you this zone, this area right here is the first area of good support for this chart of nat gas. Now, if nat gas does continue to bounce up, the first area of test and contention is going to be this declining trend line right here, currently right about $3.67. And then if it pushes further, and this would be minor resistance too, folks. So a breakthrough here would not be that difficult for nat gas to do. The major area of resistance I will be looking at, should it push forward, is going to be right here at $3.90. Next up, the DXY continues to move down on the charts. So far, the markets aren't freaking out about this at the current state. We'll see, though, how much of a decline continues on the dollar before it starts putting stress on the markets. First big support areas all the way down here at $94.93, still about $3 away here on the chart of the dollar. Next up, Meta. Now, Meta, what an incredible push recovery from this low pivot placed here in April. Pushing now back up near all-time highs. Notice here this gap fill was filled yesterday. And if I flip over to the 10-minute chart, you can see here now on today's price action getting so close to that parallel. But then yesterday's price action, we had price open up right here and hit that gap fill. And all day nearly, Meta sold off. And it really made a recovery from the sell-off today. As you see, gapped up open today and pushed all the way up here. Didn't quite tag this parallel. It kissed it. It got close enough for an official kiss, but then started pulling back on the chart. If we start consolidating right here, that would build momentum for a break into that parallel channel. We flip back to the daily chart. If we do break into that parallel channel, we're tagging all-time highs here, roughly about 740.79 cents. So be mindful of this area. There's a lot of resistance here. If I flip on the RSI, you can see we've been hovering right around the 70 area on the daily chart. But if I go to the weekly chart, we still got some room to run, folks. Now, this is all divergence here. This is all divergence of the RSI compared to what price is doing here. We'll see, though, if we get a little push higher, even eclipse the all-time highs here on Meta, and this RSI will likely be pressing 70, which is in overbought territory, likely for a probability of a pullback and correction of some sort on the chart of Meta in the very near term. Next up, Netflix. Very similar situation, folks. We have another push up, making brand new all-time highs again today and closing at the all-time highs. That says the likelihood that price is going to go higher is actually increasing, even though this chart is extremely stretched out. Again, this chart hovering right around the 70 on the daily RSI. If we flip over the weekly, I'm going to display another area that will likely become resistance should price continue accelerating up higher. Now, notice we also have divergence here on the RSI, higher price, lower RSI than last time RSI was breaching 70. So that all tells me, just like when we focused on gold and we were watching the RSI on gold, this is telling me that the likelihood of a pullback in the near to midterm is higher than a continued push higher. But stocks, especially with lighter volume going into the summertime, like I said at the beginning of the show, they can defy gravity longer than expected because less players are involved and more people are hitting the buy button than the sell button. So when you have less volatility, we have a gradual float, and we can definitely do so and continue moving higher on the charts, even though it may not make too much sense with us being extended as we are on some of these charts. So if that happens, the next area of resistance on Netflix, as you see here on the weekly chart, I took a pivot from July of 2019, connected over to this next pivot in July of 2020. And you see here this trend line coming up near today's price. If we were to excel in the next couple of weeks, right around $1,500 on Netflix would be another major contention area on the charts. But all the while, a pullback would make a lot more sense from this point at now. This would be minor support at 12.16. This one would be more of a support right around 11.18 on the charts for Netflix. Into Dick's Sporting Goods. Now, Dick's had a nice breakout move today. You see with this bar right here today, closing 5.5% higher and up $10 for the day. Nice move on Dick's, but it also did push above this declining trend line that you see here on the chart. It's already attempted to do so before and failed. Notice it never confirmed here either. And then price just got rejected back down here, forming a bear flag and now breaking out of that pattern. Great move for Dick's. First resistance, though, is going to be a breach here, the $200 area, and any pullback. You want to see a confirmation, though. Ideally, tomorrow, you want to see a confirming move above this high price on today's candle. Close up here, then any pullback down into this trend line in this area. Basically, all these pivots could be buy opportunities right around 186.25 on the chart. Next up, we've got Marvell. Now, Marvell Technologies, this has been a really neat play, and we can learn a lot about studying chart behavior and patterns just by looking at this chart. And so you may ask, what do you mean? Well, I've got a couple different lines drawn here that I want to explain to you. The first, we have an inverse head and shoulders patterns on Marvell, with this line being the neckline of that inverse head and shoulders pattern. The measured move for that pattern is up here at $89.89. If you notice too, when we did have price breakout in this area, we've now created an inclining parallel defined by this trend line and this trend line. So any pullbacks into this trend line are going to be support, as I've highlighted right here, 73.09 and 68.12. Depending upon when and where price pulls back to, those are going to be the areas of support should price pull back down. But the probabilities are all dictating that Marvell has got more room to run and is going to be pushing up a little bit higher on the charts. But one thing I also want to point out too, for more intraday trading, for those folks involved in day trading too, I ended up not taking this level. It was a little too close for me, but just to show you the technical analysis and how these patterns work. Notice this top end of the trend line when price opened up today, it excelled through, then got rejected, then made another attempt to push higher, then got rejected again. And then price started finalizing and simmering out right here on this trend line. If I go back over to the daily chart, and here, let me click this, the daily chart right here. You can see also, this is one of my favorite patterns to identify on charts. Whenever I have an opportunity to find a pivot high, and I can string this horizontally across, and notice this one candle right here, price came right down into this horizontal trend line. Whenever I can find a support resistance trend line. So this was resistance moving up, and then now coming down, it's support. That tells me that that area is significant in the chart. And if I flip it back over to the 10-minute chart, you can see that's where price broke above, fell below, then struggled to get back above, and ultimately is finishing back higher than this trend line. So that tells me this is a very good bullish move for Marvell. So there's a lot of investors in here likely recognizing what I've seen with that inverse head and shoulders pattern and are pushing the price up on this stock. But albeit considered that I wouldn't want to jump in right now, I'd wait for any pullback and then get in for that completed measured move up there to 89.89. All right, more into some trend line analysis. We see here this stock, EQIX, Equinix, did have a dramatic drop today, but did catch some support, finishing today roughly about 50% of this huge red candle that we see displayed, still finishing down 9.56% on the day, a drop of $78. Big move on this stock. But if you notice here, we can utilize this one pivot, and this will be more for trend line education for you to understand how you can utilize major pivots and draw these trend lines to predict where price will bounce or will have support. So let's get back into this. So we'll use one trend line for all of this analysis. Notice how I strung this one trend line from this pivot low, and then I connected it over to these pivots and strung it all the way across. Notice when price came back, it bounced, it pierced, bounced, pierced again, came back up, struggled here, but then ultimately regained strength. And even when it came back down, it tagged that trend line first, bounced up, and then ended up making another attempt to break through. So that is a significant trend line right there on the charts, displaying interaction with that trend line where price excels into it from a distance, straight down. It creates a very nice bounce up on the charts. So how could I predict where price was going to bounce here? It's very simple, folks. We just adjust this trend line. I pull it down to the very next pivot. And then you see right here, we have from this pivot, we have a collection area and nice bounce opportunity up. And then that created that huge bounce there. We also have this area getting pierced and then bouncing straight up. So this adjustment of the trend line down to this pivot showed us where the bottom of this price action was going to occur. And then also this one. But what if I wanted to find closer beneath that area? All I do is pull that trend line down just a little bit further to this pivot created right here. And then voila, there's the answer. That's how you can find significant levels on charts, all by utilizing one pivot point and then using trend line analysis to see if price interacts with that trend line, as very well was displayed right here on this chart. Next up, we've got Coinbase, also with some more technical analysis with trend lines, utilizing one pivot point right here. And you can see how each one of these trend lines was very significant on this chart of Coinbase. We have this declining trend line that caught price several times, rejected it right through here, then finally broke above, then came back down, broke back above again, then retested the top end before excelling the last few days. And notice Coinbase now up 5.54%. This same pivot area created another trend line right across here, which showed us where price was going to stop 2 days ago. And even yesterday, price retreated back down to that trend line before excelling up higher today. Now we have the third and final horizontal trend line going all the way across, showing that price has now closed above this horizontal trend line, insinuating a potential breakout on Coinbase. But if we notice with other trend lines, we're starting to run right into resistance with this sharp move up. And with the sharp move up, the RSI is overbought. So Coinbase likely needs to start consolidating. We'll see tomorrow if we do close above today's high, which would make this horizontal trend line more and stronger of a support area on this chart. However, I'm not a buyer of the first support areas. I like to wait for at least one or two other support areas before I'm interested in getting into a play. The second support area would be on this declining trend line, one that we highlighted right here, over to this pivot, and that price action will be right around 347.35. But with this much of an extended move, I would likely anticipate it pulling back down even further after that 347 area down to 310, right around 310. That should give you some great support there on Coinbase. All right, guys, hope you guys enjoyed that education. If you want to learn it for yourself, we've got Mastering the Overnight Trade, the sleeper hold. I go through all of this details. If you want to draw trend lines like we do on Trading the Close and finding those support areas, do yourself a favor, get these education courses while they're on sale, running through this Sunday. We've got all our courses on sale. Great time to go ahead and get educated during the summer when the markets are typically less active. All right, that wraps up Trading the Close. Again, my name is Drew Dosek. You guys have a fantastic day. I'll look forward to bringing you guys some more data and information coming Monday. Till then, have a great weekend.
Wakey, wakey, Grandpa! You fumbled the cleanest double bottom on SPY last night. I'm talking textbook AF. Ratioed yourself IRL. Brushing your teeth. Cool. Too bad you didn't scrub your risk management first. This isn't a pour over, it's a pullback. And you missed it harder than you missed prom in '84. Bro, that bull flag on Tesla was doing cartwheels in your face. You ghosted it harder than your high school crush. You not only ran out of TP, you ran out of risk management. That was a bearish engulfing on the 5-minute, and you YOLO'd through it. Clown behavior.
Verified investing. Built for the ones who hate losing.
Yes! Finally giving main character energy. Proud of you, King.
Verified investing. No cap, all facts. Not financial advice, just facts, charts, and a little attitude.